There's a lot of people out there who believe that Jesus is going to come and visit the Jews, and then he's going to come to the world in his official final second coming. There's a lot of people that think this, and there's a lot of people that have built theories around this, and they've made videos about it. And part of the reason they think this is because in Ezekiel 39 it says that it's going to take 7 years to burn all the weapons of war after the battle around Jerusalem. So they think, well, okay, there's going to be a gap. So Jesus is going to descend and save the Jews, and then he's going to go away, but he'll come back later and appear in glory in the clouds, and everyone in the world will see him. But what do the scriptures say about that? Today I want to take a look in section 45, and we're going to read through it very slowly and clearly so there can be no mistake about what it's saying. We're going to start here in verse 39. And it shall come to pass that he that feareth me shall be looking forth for the great day of the Lord to come, even for the signs of the coming of the Son of Man. So we've learned that the great day of the Lord is basically his return, and there will be signs that portend that. So there's an equivalence there. It says even, so it's saying this thing is this other thing here. Now if you think I'm wrong on any of this, please drop a very specific comment below. I'm making this video to prove a point, yes, but I am open to being wrong, and I love being challenged. And very often I'll rush into an argument and I'll put forth my position very clearly, hoping that people will argue it with me because I want to know if I'm right. I think I'm right, but I'm not holding on to that too tightly. So please, if you see anything that's wrong here, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Okay, on to verse 40. And they shall see signs and wonders, for they shall be shown forth in the heavens above and in the earth beneath. And they shall behold blood and fire and vapors of smoke. And before the day of the Lord shall come, the moon shall be turned to blood, and the stars shall fall from heaven. Okay, so these signs in the heaven here in verse 42 are the things that happen right before Jesus comes back. There is the sign of the coming of the Son of Man, and then there's these signs preceding, where the powers of heaven are shaking. I want to jump over to Joseph Smith's translation of Matthew 24 in the Pearl of Great Price in verse 36 here. And as I said before, after the tribulation of those days, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken, okay, so that's the moon and the sun and the stars, because those are the powers of heaven, right? Then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in the heaven. So the official, like, hey, here he comes. This is the last sign before we see Christ. And these powers being shaken in the heavens are like right before the last sign. Okay, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. All right, so far we have this list of events, just looking at the scriptures. We're not adding anything in here. We're not interpolating anything. It's just the signs in the heavens will be shaken. The powers of heaven will be shaken, sun, moon, stars, right? Then the sign of the coming of the Son of Man. Simple so far, right? Okay, back to section 45, verse 43. And the remnant shall be gathered to this place. Now the remnant here is the Jewish people, and this place is basically Jerusalem. Why? How do we know? Well, flip back a couple verses and you'll notice it's because Jesus was talking to the disciples in Jerusalem. Verse 44, and then shall they look for me, and behold, I will come, and they shall see me in the clouds of heaven, clothed with power and great glory, with all the holy angels, and he that watches for me shall not be cut off. But before the arm of the Lord shall fall, an angel shall sound his trump, and the saints that have slept shall come forth to meet me in the cloud. Okay, now I don't want to be like super redundant here. I know this can be annoying, but I want you to come with me every step of the way. Is this clear in your mind? What's happening in order? So far we have the powers of heaven being shaken. Then the next sign is the sign of the coming of the Son of Man. And then here it says in this verse that the Jews will see Jesus in the clouds. But then it jumps back and says, but before the Lord drops his arm on the nations, the resurrection begins. So Jesus will be up there, the Jews will see him, the resurrection will start. I haven't missed anything here, right? Let's go back and make sure that we got this right. Okay. Sun, moon, stars darken. Yes, remnant gathered. Jews will be in Jerusalem. 44. They'll see him in the clouds. Okay, so if they're seeing him, the sign of the coming of the Son of Man has occurred, right? But before the Lord does anything with the nations, before he drops his arm, before he brings destruction down on the wicked, the angel's going to sound his trumpet and the saints that slept will come forth. So, resurrection, look at that. First, Jews see him in the clouds. Then the resurrection happens. And we know that at some point after this, the arm of the Lord is going to fall, right? So moving on, wherefore, if you have slept in peace, blessed are you. For as you now behold me, and know that I am, even so shall ye come unto me, and your souls shall live, and your redemption shall be perfected. And the saints shall come forth from the four quarters of the earth. So first resurrection. The first resurrection here is well underway. All right, then shall the arm of the Lord fall upon the nations. All right, so this is all happening before the Lord's arm falls on the nations. The resurrection begins. The Jews see him in the clouds, right? Then the Lord is going to drop his arm. Let's keep reading. And then shall the Lord set his foot upon this mount. What mount? The Mount of Olives. And it shall cleave in twain, and the earth shall tremble and reel to and fro, and the heavens also shall shake. And the Lord shall utter his voice, and all the ends of the earth shall hear it, and the nations of the earth shall mourn, and they that have laughed shall see their folly. Again, back to the list. They see him in the clouds. The resurrection begins. He touches down on the Mount of Olives. And what happens next? The Lord speaks. To whom? All the ends of the earth. And the nations of the earth mourn. Okay, are you catching this? Jesus is descending from the clouds. He touches down on the Mount of Olives, and he speaks, and all the earth hears him. Has he met the Jews yet? No. Have they seen him in the cloud? Yes. Has he talked to them? No. The destruction of the wicked is happening here in verse 49. And calamity shall cover the mocker, and the scorner shall be consumed, and they that have watched for iniquity shall be hewn down and cast into the fire. Sounds to me like the second coming has officially occurred. He has appeared to the world because all of them have heard his voice and have been cast into the fire if they're wicked. The wicked are dead now. The wicked have been destroyed. Okay, what we've read so far, can we all agree Kenneth is not making stuff up? We're just reading the scriptures in order. And they are in order because they're telling us a story. And when it needs to jump backwards a little bit, it said so. It says, wait, but before this happens, this one. Okay, now back to this. And then this happens, but before this next thing happens, we do that. So it's being very clear, it's using chronological language, and it's showing things in a sequence and an order. We are just doing the most straightforward reading and interpretation, looking at what the text itself says. We're not making any interpretations here. We don't have to guess. This is not ambiguous. This is not unclear. It's not murky. It's not like, oh, there's maybe another interpretation that could be there. It's going in order and it's telling us when it's going to jump backwards or forwards. This is direct and simple. And if you're not feeling solid on our reading so far, please pause the video and go back. I want to make sure before we go on, you are feeling 100% solid in this. And again, if I missed anything, let me know in the comments. So far, we're just looking at the strict order of events. Okay, on to the next verse. Now what happens? The wicked have just been burned. What happens next in order? And then shall the Jews look upon me and say, what are these wounds in thine hands and in thy feet? Then shall they know that I am the Lord, for I will say unto them, these wounds are the wounds with which I was wounded in the house of my friends. I am he who was lifted up. I am Jesus that was crucified. I am the Son of God. Okay, so let's pause here and look at this. The scriptures have just shown us that the wicked are burned. And then he meets the Jews. You see that there? And then. Now let's get really basic here. What does the phrase, and then, really mean? Isn't it the case that the only interpretation of and then means something's going to happen in order, chronologically later than this first thing? If it means anything other than that, then I don't understand English and I don't understand language. This is not my opinion. This is what the scriptures say. The wicked are destroyed, and then the Jews meet the Messiah. So, are these multiple appearances of Christ? If you want to break it up and create like this really weird, unclear distinction, well, there's the Jews and there's the wicked, so those are two groups, so that means there's two appearances. Okay, but I think that really muddies the water here. He speaks and the whole world hears, and he destroys them. And then he has an audience with the Jews. So if you want to call that like a separate appearance, cool. But like the second coming is when he appears to the Jews. The people on earth, all of the wicked, all of the righteous, all of the Jews are going to be watching this happen, or hearing about it, or being cast down into a fire. If you disagree with me, what did I miss? Because going through this verse by verse, I'm not seeing any wiggle room where I could be wrong. Now we could pretty much end the video here, but let's go on and let's continue to support this idea. As we saw in Joseph Smith Matthew, there's an important tidbit at the end there. Did you catch it? And as I said before, after the tribulation of those days and the powers of heavens shall be shaken, then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. Why? Why? Because, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Did he make some separate appearance to the Jews and then pop back up into the clouds where they all see him at the same time and they're all mourning because they realize they screwed up? No, because again, back to here, calamity shall cover the mocker, the scorner shall be consumed, they're cast into the fire, and then shall the Jews look upon me. I don't know how this could be any clearer, but I understand if your brain is going, but wait, what about that gap where they're burning the weapons? And hang on. I know there's a lot of questions that can come up if you've had a different belief, or if you've been into different theories or watched different timeline videos, because they had lots of quotes from general authorities, and they had scriptures, and they put them all together, and it seemed like, whoa, this is amazing, and it was really convincing, right? So it's normal for your brain to be confused and to run into this feeling of cognitive dissonance when you have two things that contradict each other. But stick with it here. Stick with the uncertainty. It's okay to feel this. It doesn't mean anything bad is happening. It's just really uncomfortable. It's what happens when we recognize we're holding two things in our mind that can't both be true at the same time. It basically means something's inaccurate and it needs to be revised. So let's just stick with the most basic thing we can do and read the scriptures as they are. We're reading them in context here. We've read them in order. We're not cherry picking. We're not pulling one verse from here and one verse from there and mashing them together. We're just going, what did the Lord Jesus Christ tell us is going to happen about the second coming? So the question is, do we care about the truth more than we care about our pet theories or YouTube videos or church manuals or occasional talks by general authorities here and there? The scriptures say this very clearly. And if there's something that contradicts it, it's going to be wrong by default, because the scriptures have just told us what the truth is. So again, if I'm wrong on this, I will drop it like a hot potato. But I will need someone to show me very clearly why. And I'll need you to go through section 45 here and be very specific of, hey, this thing right here, you missed it. There's something in between. You'll have to show me how it's possible to shoehorn in something there.